The afternoon session, I think, is great. It's bridging the green skills gap, why younger generations are central to the net zero transition. So younger generations are central to the net zero transition, but their skills and giving them the jobs and the ability to have profitable careers to drive that are also essential. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're here on Energy Day as well, so we're going to do a little bit about taking a focus on why is the energy transition and jobs and skills in that area really important. And we're going to get some great facts and figures about actually what's happening with youth today and what are some practical examples of how corporates are really trying to take action. And we're going to hear from some fantastic young people who are really leading the charge. So can I ask to come up my colleague Rob Turner, who's going to give us a little bit of thinking about the energy transition itself. I'm just going to call everybody up one after the other, otherwise we'll take forever. And then I've got a wonderful stand-in because we were going to have Leyla Hasanova, who's the youth climate champion of Azerbaijan's COP29 presidency. She's been called away to a town hall with the COP president, so we take that as really great, giving Voice of Youth right access. So her communications consultant, Narman Tagieva, is going to stand in very ably for her. So Narman, if you would like to come up, please, and come and sit. Oh, actually, they're all in different orders, aren't they? Come over there, that's lovely. So she's working with Leyla on mainstreaming the voice of youth into the COP process, and it's clearly working, as we've just seen. Next, Dana, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, I'm sure of this, Shukurabayeva, who is a member of the Youth Advisory Board of the United Nations. She's an impact entrepreneur and she's been recognized in the Forbes 30 Under 30. So welcome. She's founded Forest Hero, which is an AI-based platform for responsible forest management in Central Asia, and was a WISER pioneer, which is Women in Sustainability, Environment and Renewable Energy. And I was wearing my badge about women are leading climate change. My colleague is wearing one down here. So great to hear how we're harnessing all of that. So great to have you with us. None of this works without data. So we're going to bring some hard data evidence into the conversation. So I'm delighted that we've got Melanie Larkins, who leads LinkedIn's environmental sustainability program. Where would we have been without LinkedIn, right? How would we all know who each other are? So Melanie is going to tell us some of those facts and figures and how green skills isn't developing uniformly across the world. And I hope she's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing to sort that out. Because we're going to task everybody with action here. It's not just chat. We've actually got to do some stuff and do it fast. Now, many of us, whenever we're talking about jobs and skills, refer to the ILO, so the International Labour Organization. So I am really pleased that it's not just going to be us quoting the ILO. We've actually got the ILO coming to give us the hard truths of it. So Paul Tacon is a labour migration specialist at the ILO. His work looks at ILO's work in multilateral and interagency processes related to international migration and linking the just transition with labour migration and mobility. And for me, that's a really, really important thing to focus on. He'll bring us insights on the policy side of it, because we need the whole continuum here. It doesn't work without policy, it doesn't work without business, it doesn't work without data and without youth engagement. So, last but not least, we've got Marie Kakebeke, who is the Strategic Engagement and Empowerment Executive Leader at Baker Hughes, and more importantly, got the memo about wearing the same jackets. So ladies with what check did you say we were? Prince of Wales check. So we're being very, yes, I'm British, so that makes me feel good. So Marie works at Baker Hughes, and they've been doing some really interesting things about upskilling their workforce with new green technical skills, not just their own workforce, but spreading that more broadly. So she's going to share some of her real insights in that area. So, right, that's enough from me for the moment. So to get us started, Rob, I'm going to turn to you. We are here on Energy Day. I wanted you to set the scene a little bit, just to give us something, some context of the state of the energy transition the level of change that we're going to see, and the impact that that has on jobs and skills.
Cool. Just going to check this mic is working. Yeah, good. I'm sure, like me, you've all been to all the workshops already and all the discussions about the trillions and billions and all that kind of stuff.
Can you hear? I can't hear you.
You've also been, we know the capital projects, we know the scale of the spend, we know all of that. That's great. Good. The other thing that we've talked about a lot this week is NDCs, which are effectively being used as a proxy at this COP to talk about needing energy transition plans, needing government plans, and needing backing. So we take those two things as a given. My key message today is in that energy transition plan, it's as important that there is government policy and private sector policy around skills as it is around the direction we're giving about how much wind or how much solar or other things that might sit in that energy transition plan. Let me explain why by looking at what I'd call upstream skills and then downstream skills. So upstream skills, to use some energy language, we need to build a lot of stuff to deliver the energy transition, okay? A lot of things which, to be honest, when you start describing them using engineering language, don't sound like the green stuff, right? We need pipelines, we need processing plants, we need hydrogen technology, we need to be able to sequester carbon. There's plenty of things that need to happen that look an awful lot like the big, hairy engineering projects which characterize the historical energy industry. Now, if we'd sat down as PwC with our energy sector clients 15 years ago and said, what's the biggest challenge in the energy sector? One of the top three would have been skills. It's been a huge issue for energy, for getting green versus traditional energy. It's been a huge issue for a very long time. Lack of supply of qualified graduates, lack of supply of engineers. We tried to resurrect the nuclear industry in Europe 10 or 15 years ago, and they had to bring people out of retirement because no one had built a nuclear plant for 30 or 40 years at that time. So there's a huge, huge challenge around the right kind of skills. And for me, we need to be really robust about this and stop thinking about green skills as it were, sustainability skills or the overall framing the story around climate and start realizing it's engineers, it's process engineering, it's project engineering, it's people who can be in that tier one contractor, be in those EPC businesses. And those businesses typically are facing a skills gap. So number one, what I'd say is you need to take responsibility at a government level and a private sector level to bring those people in and to be showing the excitement of green transition, to show how many jobs need to be created and how valuable those jobs are. So when we're quoting those trillions of investment, we should also be saying, and this is the skills gap and this is the plan to cover that skills gap. So that's the upstream energy part. The downstream energy part is also not that. So that's finding new skills and new people in the upstream. The downstream bit is about reskilling. So if you look at the other part of the energy transition, which is the demand side, it's installing those solar panels, it's getting those heat pumps in, it's retrofitting those houses. Those are plumbers. Those are electricians. Those are the engineers who are out there driving their vans around today, delivering traditional energy, and we need a reskilling agenda there. So we need to be reskilling the people who know how to do what they do, and we need to be aggressively pushing out apprenticeship programs and that kind of thing to ensure that those skills are hitting the market at the pace that's required. If you have tried, and I've just done this, to retrofit your house for green, finding enough people at a reasonable price is almost impossible. And that's in the UK where a lot of this is happening. So I'd say two real calls to action in energy transition plans is build the stream of qualified graduates and people for that upstream, which I'm basically thinking of as construction and engineering agenda, and also drive skills in the wider economy to ensure that the demand side of the equation can also be met. So I think it's a real call to action, and I'm sorry to see actually that skills are not being talked about enough in those energy transition plans, Emma.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob, for that really great and insightful overview. So I'm going to start at this end and talk about actually how are young people now being allowed to have a voice within the climate negotiations. The Presidency Youth climate champion role was only established recently, and this year the Youth Delegates Programme was established. Could we hear a little bit about why those programs were set up, how successful they're being, and do you feel you're getting a voice in the right way? And maybe a few comments on Rob's challenge about how do we get that language on skills into today's dialogue. And thank you again for standing in.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Yes, I guess. Thank you once again. So I'm here on behalf of Layla, who is the Presidency Youth Climate Champion for COP29. I'm Norman, and I will be touching upon the points that you guys mentioned. So the Youth Delegate Programme was established by COP29 Presidency Youth Climate Champion to give a chance for youth and children to learn about climate mitigation, climate actions, be more informed and be alert to what they can be doing in advance to help the collectively solve the problem. So this program actually brings together youth from different countries to allow them an educational program where they come and learn through different masterclasses, through different lectures and practical workshops as well. But apart from that, I actually want to mention what we have done so far to implement this language into the system. So COP29 Presidency Youth Climate Champion team recently had intervention during the Baku Climate Action Week. So one of the interventions we had was the Ideathon. It's an event that was on bridging the gap between youth and green skills job market. So what we did, we had a 3-day event where 15 teams of 6 people, including government representatives, business owners, and students, they were all together trying to find an idea, a plan, a project proposal on how we can implement the green skills into the education system for building a more, let's say, continuous system to attract kids and youth and children of the globe.
So was that from school all the way up through tertiary
yes,
education?
that is correct. We currently have a network that is being established, which was established as a name in the Baku Climate Action Week again. We have this Azerbaijani Universities Climate Network that is coming up as a network that brings together UK universities' experience in terms of climate, education, green curriculums into the education system. So the event actually captured a series of masterclasses and lectures and practical workshops where at the end we had the chance to have 3 winning teams, and these teams actually got investment opportunities and they had the chance to make this project a real life thing as well. So this is a small step in the whole intention area, but again, we had one more, so we had a summer camp actually recently, and this summer camp included over 70 teachers, young learners and teachers from all around the globe who were brought together in Baku to learn about green curriculum, to learn about how we can implement this in our education system and how we can actually support the climate battle that we're currently trying to tackle away. So now we have Presidency's mandate for Youth Climate Champion, which is to enhance action, where we actually try to call youth into this action through this programs such as the ones that I just mentioned, to enable action actually. So as a result, we're actually looking forward to a long-term collaboration with schools, with universities, with stakeholders from different industries, because again, we're in this together. This is a matter not only for youth, but all globe, which is a collective problem. And we believe that this needs a collective solution as well.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Nara. It's great to hear, and keep up the good work. So Dana, maybe turning to you, because I think your role complements what we've just heard about. You're a Youth Advisory Board member at the United Nations. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you're hearing from the young people that you are talking to about opportunities for the green economy, for new jobs and skills? I mean, I know that in a recent survey, two-thirds of young people are worried about losing jobs, and over 2/3 want to work in the green economy. What are you able to do to help make that happen?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. As a member of Youth Council under the United Nations in Central Asia, we see that a lot of people, young people, after graduating universities, they face skills mismatch. So, and where they really want to apply for any job like related to green economy or something like that, all of the positions that are available are not for, let's say, fresh graduates. Most of the companies working or responsible for green economy are national or governmental, and this type of work is not very much attractive to Gen Z, let's say. So that's why they don't know how to start from the private sector, and all of the traditional methods that are normally used to be in, let's say, all sectors, where you really know the career pathway and you really know what are steps are you going to, face in your career. In green economy, it's quite different. So I think it's more about like youth in Kazakhstan and Central Asia, for example, they really want to know about opportunities, even like for using LinkedIn solutions to find a job from their school time, because they are not educated for this type of job seeking skills, let's say, and they want to know more about from their like school period of time to be prepared.
Focused in a little bit on priority areas around climate finance and climate law. Could you maybe bring to life a little bit about those individual programs?
Yeah, so I'm also co-founding NGO, Climate Action Initiative Central Asia. And our main idea and DNA of the work is building local expertise among youth in terms of climate finance and climate law. So young people, most of them, they really care about all of these climate change challenges, but most of them are just eco-activists, right? So they only, to be honest, like they only support by reposting or posting about these problems, but they don't know how to contribute professionally, right? So that's why we have decided to make a course on climate law and climate finance by having support from our contributors. We have lecturers from World Bank, EBRD, Ernst & Young, and other companies. So they shared their knowledge about climate finance and law, also did some inspiring stories about how they get involved in this type of economy, because not all of these people that are working in World Bank or EBRD are environmental specialists or, I don't know, like ecologists, right? So we are ruining this myth about that if you want to work in climate change, you have to be environmental scientists.
Yeah.
And all of these startups and new ideas in innovation cannot work without law and finance. So that's why we have decided that we have to
That's a message close to my heart, clearly, working for PwC.
Yeah. So that's why we decided to prepare this youth or be able to work with these stakeholders with the knowledge of climate finance and climate law and how it really works. And also to make this type of expertise more available for our region, we have translated these lectures into Kazakh language, because a lot of youth right now, they don't speak let's say Russian language, for example, because we are a post-Soviet country, right? So lots of expertise, very up-to-date, is in English. But not all people from regions know that, right? So not all of people speak English fluently on a professional level. That's why we are translating this type of content from English to local language to make it more impactful.
I love these really practical actions, and I'm sure we'll come on and talk more later about how we actually make skills more universally available and training more universally available. But maybe, Melanie, I can turn on to you. I mean, we've already had a shout out for how young people are using LinkedIn to understand things, but maybe we can start with a little bit of ground setting, because we keep talking about green jobs and green skills, but I've never seen a really kind of concrete definition of what that is. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you look at that and how you measure it and what trends you're seeing.
It's a really good question. We don't have a standardized definition for what either of those mean as kind of a global community. ILO, for example, with Paul, ILO defines a green job as a job that is focused on restoring, conserving, protecting nature, the environment. For us at LinkedIn, the way that we define a green job is a job that uses green skills. And so that could mean that you are an accountant that is working on ESG reporting. For us, that would be a green job. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're working for a sustainably minded company, that for us, you're not necessarily in a green job. You could be an accountant for a climate change company, but if you don't have a green skill that you're using to do your job, then for us, that wouldn't be a green job. And what is a green skill? For us, that's one that is concerned with, like a green job, with helping us to create a sustainable future. It's the skills that we need to do that. So no, we don't have a standardized definition. It's one of the things that I think we need to maybe just at least recognize that we don't have that, because I think that there's this assumption that when I say green jobs and when Paul says green jobs and when you say green jobs, that we're all talking about the same thing, but oftentimes we're not.
Yeah, and when we try and put it back into the negotiations, if we don't know what we're talking about, are we actually all in different territories asking for the same thing? Probably not.
Exactly. And I think also for Gen Z and for youth, that's a really important thing where you are used to seeing if it's not something that has the title that I'm recognizing as a green job, then that kind of doesn't count, I think, for a lot of people. And I think if you expand to then focus instead on green skills, that opens up a whole lot of other options for people, especially for youth. And that's on the employment side, the worker side, but also on the employer side, where if you're focused on green skills versus a green title, then that gives you the option to hire based on experience, based on skills that people have that are related, that help them do that job, versus trying to find someone that has that similar title in their background. For example, for marketing manager, what we found is that there were 19 other job roles that could had a very similar skill set, 7 out of 10 of the same skills that you need to do the marketing manager job. But if you're hiring for that position and you're only looking for the title marketing manager in someone's background, as a recruiter or a hiring manager, you're missing out on so much talent. And it's the same with green jobs. It's the same with green skills, where there's this disconnect where people have a passion for wanting to be a part of the sustainable future, especially youth, but can't get the jobs because they don't have the right experience. And companies that are just craving the green talent that they can't find because they're not quite, there's that disconnect. So skills are kind of that bridge that I think will help us connect a little bit better.
And so maybe just dive into that a little bit more, this bit about, because you often hear people saying, I haven't got the experience to get the job. So what's your advice to young people or to business to break down that barrier? What sort of things is LinkedIn having a look at? Is there a shift in approach that you're seeing, how companies are being a bit more open-minded about that relevant experience?
I think so. I think more companies are moving to the skills-based hiring approach that I mentioned before. One company that I looked at, SSE in particular, is a UK-based company that's focused on low carbon energy transition. And they have an apprenticeship and trainee program that lasts about 2 to 3 years for participants. They're paid throughout that apprenticeship and trainee program. When they graduate, then they have skilled talent in a highly technical field, which again, that's really hard to find. So they're creating their own pipeline, they're upskilling, creating that pipeline. There are other companies that are doing the same. We're also seeing small businesses that are doing more on upskilling. One that we featured in our 2024 Green Skills Report is called 1.5, or 1.5. So they're using more of kind of a boot camp cohort model, similar to what you've seen in tech. And they have a 6-week program. When people come out of that program, they're equipped with skills like decarbonization strategy, life cycle assessment, and that is another life cycle assessment. LCA is a highly technical skill as well. We are lacking in that, especially in the built environment, especially in construction, development, even food and agriculture. It's a really important one, and we can't find the people to do that.
It's fascinating, and we could go on for a long time. I just have one, last question, which is, are you seeing the kind of talent demand and supply changing evenly globally, or are there very different trends in different regions?
Very different trends in different regions. Overall, we're seeing the gap widen between supply or demand and supply. So much more demand for green talent than the supply is able to support. What we're seeing as a global trend is that if we continue on this path, then we will need to double the size of the green talent pool to reach our goals that we're setting for 2050. That is a staggering finding of our data. And that's not universal, as you kind of were asking about. So for Portugal, for example, this year, their demand for people with green skills increased by 71%. That's huge in 1 year. In Costa Rica, it increased by 40%, the UK by 46%. So it really depends on region. And a lot of that is depending on what the region the country is focused on. So Portugal, that huge 71% increase likely is because the largest utility announced that they were investing $27 billion to double their renewable energy capacity. So that makes sense that then they have this increase in demand.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? So it does all link. There is a method to this logic of order here, because that then links onto policy, right? And what are the policy decisions? So I'm going to come to Paul now. Paul, we've all been praising the ILO for the work that you do and the great figures and the reports that you put out. And in fact, there were some encouraging numbers overall in terms of youth employment and unemployment within the latest 2024 report. Maybe you might like to tell us a little bit about that. But actually what I really wanted to ask about was how does the ILO view the policy actions that are going to encourage the right level of demand and supply of green skills? Are there lessons that you're studying about countries that are putting in good policies versus not incentivizing in the right way? And how do you see the trends overall for youth employment being shaped by that?
No small questions. But first of all, thank you for the praise. It's always nice to hear. Also when we step outside our rather UN bubble to talk to people in
Real people.
Exactly, people in the real world. But it's nice to hear that our data is being useful and that our messages are getting across. Well, actually, I think just to start, coming back to this question of green skills. So this is something very interesting, is that at ILO we don't say green skills. And this is rather picking up on your point about green jobs. We say skills for green jobs. And I think it's taking that insight that you were mentioning, that an accountant at a renewable energy company is doing a green job, even if they're just doing what any other accountant could do. But sometimes it's really about just building those skills. And also the point you were making about people in engineering, right? You need engineers, and whether they're building a pipeline for gas or a pipeline for water. Exactly. Thank you for saving me there. These are skills for green jobs. And just another point is that we would also say that any job could be a green job. I mean, there is room to make any job more sustainable in its impacts, both directly and indirectly. And I also very much take the points about the growing demand and the unequal nature of the demand. And I think that also sort of leads into the discussion now, which is how to build those systems that can actually build that workforce with the skills for green jobs and make sure that they come out of it. I mean, we were talking about the disconnects that people are facing in Central Asia, and not just Central Asia, around the world, that they can actually then use those skills in a way that is useful for them, useful for the wider economy, useful for the transition, and where they can end up with decent jobs. So it's a challenge. I mean, for ILO, as I said, we look at the whole system. We look at skills as part of the whole employment ecosystem. And, I think as a starting point for us, the key is to bring together all of the actors involved in this world. So especially the employers and the workers as well, because we do believe they have important insights to bring to these discussions. In sort of anticipating the skills, so trying to scan the marketplace, scan the situation, see what needs are coming, and then develop appropriate solutions which are based on those real needs. So first of all, it's really about social protection. That's really, social dialogue, getting my jargon mixed up. Though social protection is also very important.
And what format might that social dialogue take, and how do you make it gender inclusive or inclusive in its broadest possible ways?
It's well, it can take many forms. I mean, there's sort of formal mechanisms often within government for, certainly in many European countries. I was just on a panel with the director of DG Employment in the EC, who's saying in the EC process, it's very formalized. Any policy discussion with a labor dimension will involve those stakeholders. But that's not always the case in all countries. I mean, ILO members, we advocate for it always. And we certainly see it, as an accelerator for progress and not, I think many perhaps governments get a little bit scared by it. They think, it's going to just turn into recriminations. But actually, we see that there is a lot of potential for constructive dialogue, building those bridges, building sort of understanding that actually the actors involved have more in common than
not. And I think we heard some great practical examples of, the 3-day engagement and the innovation ideas. This idea that dialogue can result in good policy, I think is really helpful. I think the other thing that is interesting is the levels of building training into curriculums. And again, we heard of some good work that was being done there. I think at the ILO, you've done a range of measures within the Global South on technical and vocational education and training. This is a very nice acronym. We do love our acronyms in the climate world. This is TVET, TVET, which doesn't trip off the tongue terribly easily. But anyway, I'm not going to say that the acronym again. Have you got good examples of where public-private partnerships have come together to help fill this capacity gap that you might like to share with us?
I mean, in terms of specific examples, we work in, as you say, we work in a lot of countries, and we are working through and I should say, when we're working in the countries and especially on projects, we're always working with our social partners. We're always working with employers. It's that partnership is actually really baked into ILO's way of working. So we do a lot of work with different employers, organizations. Perhaps one that I could mention off the top of my head. So as you can see from my title, I'm actually more of a migration person than a skills person, but there is a clear linkage. And there's a very interesting work that's been done in Sri Lanka, which is looking at the issue of return migration. So people who are coming back to Sri Lanka after working abroad, especially in the Gulf. Now, these people may well have learned new skills while they're abroad. They often have. But what we see is, just as much as it's difficult for people to have their skills from their home country recognized when they go abroad, it's also sometimes difficult for them to get their skills from abroad recognized in their home country. So this is actually an electronic system developed with the Employers Federation of Sri Lanka. It's called the Skills Passport, where the idea is to actually basically give returning migrant workers a sort of a biometric card, basically, where they can store data on what skills they learned abroad, have that validated, and that recognized by employers. So that's something I think that's really important. So
that's really great. So a young person who might have gone and done when they were happy to go traveling and work abroad for a couple of years would then get that skills passport kind of stamped with the skills that they'd have, and it would be recognized when they came back to their home country again.
Yeah.
Really nice idea. So I'm going to turn now to business, because we've heard that businesses are really important, and we've also heard that partnerships are really important. Delighted to have Marie from Baker Hughes here. Marie, we've heard that it's really important for business to play a part in attracting in young people, boosting that capacity gap to deliver what you need in your business, but also help young people develop their skills in the right way. Can you tell us a little bit about what Baker Hughes has been doing? You're right at the heart of the energy transition. You work with lots of people. Maybe explain a little bit about what you do as a business, and therefore why it's important for you and how you're going about it. Maybe something I hear you have a university program that's quite exciting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So this is a topic that I'm quite passionate about, and many of the points today have resonated from what we're hearing from ILO, from Melanie, what you talked about, which is defining what is a green skill. So Baker Hughes, we're an energy technology company. We're over 100 years old. We're in 120 countries, and with that comes a lot of responsibility, right? We're working with communities, we're working with university partnerships, we're working with trade associations, et cetera. And so how do you tackle the specifically what you call green jobs? Number one, internally, we had to define it. And so we feel that because sustainability is complementary to our strategy, more than complementary, it underpins our commercial strategy. Everyone has a responsibility, and it's one of our key behaviors at Baker Hughes, to have a foundational skill set understanding sustainability. And so that would not be considered a green skill, but it would be, how do you raise that just general understanding, the bar of understanding. And so in order to do that, we put in a community of practice on sustainability, and it was answering the question as, what are the fundamental components of sustainability that everyone needs to know? So
That haven't yet been built into schools' curriculum.
that
But
have not yet,
may in
100%
time
have not been.
Yeah.
And so it's answering the question, what is the difference between the word sustainability and ESG? What are regulations doing? What is the value add of sustainability, and how is it a differentiator for our company?
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, we built 3 internal trainings, and we have modules planned each year to address certain components of sustainability, and those are pushed out to our employees. But again, we know that sustainability at times, here we all understand what it is. We understand what climate challenges are. But when you go out in the non-COP world, the majority of employees, if you just pick at random, will not understand the nuances and will not, I remember on a panel a few years ago, I even got a question saying, if you work for an energy technology company and that energy technology has services and heavy equipment that supports from oil and gas all the way through geothermal and hydrogen, et cetera, but the revenue stream is still quite large on the oil and gas side, how can you say you're a sustainability advocate, right? So even there, we don't have the definition of what is a green skill. But so internally, just setting that foundation. In addition, we partner so much with our customers, with our key suppliers. We have over 40,000 suppliers. And so we know that we need to understand those skill sets specifically for things like hydrogen, things like geothermal, things like direct air capture and carbon capture, et cetera, which would be classified as a green skill.
No.
And so we've had a Baker Hughes University for years from the oil and gas side. But as we have expanded our portfolio of offering, we have also expanded our training. And it's primarily to train our customers and our suppliers to really have them understand, everything that they need to know about all of those skills that are quite important. And then lastly, what I'll focus on is when we looked at sustainability skills, we did what we called a skills mapping exercise, mm-hmm. where we looked at what is that sustainability, what are those sustainable skills that need to sit at an HQ level? So setting a science-based target, understanding reporting, aligning to certain key sustainability frameworks. So that governance really stays at HQ. But then how do you embed sustainability across your organization and make your enterprise sustainable? And so that is looking at, are you going to hire or are you going to train in the different pockets of individuals? So again, we have 58,000 employees. Like you said, depending on where those employees work, there's different areas of focus. So making sure that when you talk about regulatory compliance, that, obviously the Europe team understands CSRD, and that all of that knowledge of CSRD is not only being held under our chief sustainability officer and a few of us executives, it's actually embedded in compliance. For carbon accounting, we don't need every accountant to understand carbon accounting, but we want to make sure that we identify who across finance is going to be key for audit, for carbon accounting, et cetera, so that you're not just building a giant sustainability team, that you're, embedding it. And lastly, in engineering, we want to make sure, like when we were looking at the titles, and we actually did look on LinkedIn in terms of what titles resonate, I purposely didn't want a title that said sustainable procurement, because to me, that implies that you have non-sustainable procurement. Oh. Same thing with a product manager, sustainable product manager. Do we want a non-sustainable? So I would like, and if I had a magic wand and could change things, I want sustainability to be second nature, just like all of us get into a car and put a seatbelt on. You don't have non-sustainable procurement. You don't have non-sustainable, technology development. LCA is at the core of that, understanding how to do a life cycle assessment. And so it's a lot of things. Again, it's training your customers, supporting your suppliers, and internally identifying what is that talent that you need to hire and include young people, right, and bring that.
So maybe just bringing that back to those young people coming and looking at how they apply to your company. Mm-hmm. There is a war for talent, but equally there's a lot of young people who feel they can't get jobs. So how do you feel the way that you've approached this has affected your ability to hire the people that you are looking for? Are people coming to you because of the way that you approach it? What lessons could you share with other companies? And maybe, when you look at how does the career that you offer match the aspirations of the young people that you hire, how does that fit together for you?
Yeah, it's it's something that we work at every day. I would say the first part is really helping young people understand, whether they're already your employees or future employees, that being sustainable can be embedded in every role, which Paul, you touched on earlier. And so as part of our job descriptions, we took a look at job descriptions and started embedding some of that language in it. So even if the title doesn't have sustainability in it, which the majority of titles will not, there is that framework that you need in terms of, understand, like sourcing locally or understanding carbon accounting, or really focusing on those skills and embedding those skills. Secondly, one of our leadership programs for fresh out, so young talent, is the program is called Aspire. And Aspire gives employees an opportunity to do 6 months rotation in different roles. And so getting them exposed to sustainability, whether they're working in oil and gas, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, right? Working in oil and gas and being sustainable. But at the end of the day, we believe at Baker Hughes that in order to meet energy demand, you need to have a robust energy mix, and oil and gas is part of that energy mix for the foreseeable future. And therefore, we need to really focus on efficiency. And there's a lot of overlap between digital, so automation, understanding AI, et cetera, and sustainability. And so making sure that language as well as those opportunities for the different rotations for our Aspire candidates, is also incorporated. And then lastly, I have a lot of employees that reach out to me and say, I want to work in sustainability. Are you hiring? Is your team? And I explain to them that the networks that we've put in place we have 30 external, what we call strategic outcomes for sustainability. We want to be transparent with, this is what we've committed to doing. To do that and to take it from an aspiration and to a fact, you have to action it. It typically doesn't happen on its own, and you have to build networks. And so what we've done is significant stakeholder mapping. Yeah. The younger generation is such a strong voice, and they're so thirsty for being part of this movement. And so getting them involved, building champions across, sustainability champions, again, that's not their title, but they wear that hat where they are able to action the change. And one of the sound bites I'll give you is when we were the first energy service company to set a net zero goal in 2019 for our scope 1 and 2 emissions. We thought, okay, how are we going to do this? Especially in 2019, where we had not yet diversified as much. I mean, compare 2019 to now, and we're much more diversified. We started building a program called Carbon Out. It is now a global program. And I heard a quote yesterday that inspired me that said, even, the longest 1,000-mile journey starts with one step.
Yep.
And so that's what we did. We started with one project to remove emissions in our scope 1 and 2. And now, we have over 1,000 projects in our pipeline that have been vetted by finance, vetted by audit. We've just actioned over 700
And so
individual.
people are keen to be part
And
of that
people
journey.
want to be part of that. And what we're seeing is it's a lot of the young people that want to be part of that change.
Yeah.
They want to be change advocates. And they quickly realize they don't have to have sustainability in their title. They can be a mechanical engineer working on efficiency.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Now we've got about 10 minutes left, and I would love to make this participative, and I'd love to get some questions for our fantastic panel. So can I ask you all to be thinking of what your questions are? But I'd like to come back maybe to Narman and just say, you've heard a lot here, right? You've heard a lot from data to policy to processes in business to the macro. What's your challenge back to this panel representing youth? What have you heard, and what would you like to hear more of?
Actually, it's a great chance for me to be able to hear from different views and build upon what we are working on. So as Marie actually mentioned, we want the sustainability to be the new normal. We don't want it as an option. We want this to be what we call the normal in our lives. And as I've also mentioned, the role itself for our presidency is fairly new. It's been over a year now. And we stand as a bridge to make sure that we allow youth to deliver their notes, deliver their concerns, deliver what they're looking for, maybe in businesses, maybe in education system, in any sort of living that we currently face as part of the climate change. We are there to deliver their notes to the presidencies, where we can call for support, where we can call for action. This is what we do. And again, listening to all the opinions and the mentioned challenges, I think it's important to note that we, as the COP29 presidency in general, in the mandate, we put the children and youth in the heart of climate discussions. Because we believe that youth and children are among the most powerful voices. And if we are able to hear them and deliver them, we can make a change. As you also mentioned, we call each other as change makers, because if we do not listen to what the future generation has to say, we can't build a future that they're looking up to. So I will make sure to keep the note from the experts and colleagues to pass down to what we're actually working on right now.
Fantastic.
So I think it was a great opportunity, and I truly appreciate it on behalf of our team, and looking forward to questions if you have any.
Brilliant. I'm sure there will be some great questions. Who's got a question? And in the front row, please introduce yourself and say who you want to ask.
Hello, yes.
Oh,
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, my name is Ruslan. I'm from Kazakhstan, also a member of Climate Action Initiative in Central Asia. So I got a question to Marie and Melanie. As we talk about bridging the green skills gap, what do you think is the most overlooked skill or knowledge that young people need to contribute effectively to the net zero transition?
Melanie, you go first. It's a great question. I like that question. Going to use that one again. Steal with pride.
I think, for youth, I think one of the biggest ones is really kind of the soft skills side.
The ability to speak on a panel quietly without it going.
I think it's the soft skills. It's the communication. It's the networking. It's the reaching across kind of departments. Sustainability at the core, whether it's integrated into the culture or you're doing a job that's a sustainability kind of titled job, a green job, those skills are almost always, green skills are requiring us to reach across different roles, different skill sets. You're not as siloed. I think the thing about green jobs, green skills is that it's necessarily a unifying of things and people. And I think the more that Gen Z, more the youth can do that, the more that they can communicate with other people that are in other functions and other roles, it makes it a lot easier. That's something I personally focus on a lot, is networking and mentoring with youth. I think that's a huge piece, is having that kind of intergenerational conversation so that they can ask questions in a safe space. They can learn, I can share knowledge and transfer that. I think there's a gap in my generation of not doing that as much as we should. And so like there's this thirst for knowledge. And if I'm not giving that, then what happens if I retire and I haven't passed that knowledge on, then it just kind of goes away. So I think the mentoring, networking, being able to communicate with different roles and functions is important. And being able to speak up about what they think is important and what their priorities are, so that I think youth already have a voice. They already know what they want and are able to speak. It's not like we have to give youth a voice. We need to listen and be able to hear. And I think the more that youth are able to speak up and have a platform for that and are brought into the conversation, then we can strategize together, we can build together, we can make those solutions happen. And the more that we have that input that's more inclusive, the better our solutions are. So I think it's speaking up, soft skills, communication, mentorship, networking, I think are kind of those overall skills.
So thanks, Melanie. Let's do a very quick, because I think we'll get different views from different people here. Let's do a quick round along here of what other people think. Marie, what would be in your kind of 10 type word answer rather than a...
I think, if you look at technical skills, it's going to differ if you're looking at the hydrogen space or if you're looking at the direct air capture space, et cetera. If you're looking at a strategy level, obviously my title is strategic engagement. And so in our team specifically, it's making those networks, it's knowing how to work with the public and the private sector, it's knowing how to identify academic partners and being able to bring them to the table.
Interesting.
And so that's, it just depends on what specifically. In engineering, there's a huge shortage of electrical engineering right now. And so it just depends, but specifically for strategists in sustainability, I feel like there's a lot of people in school right now where when I was going to school, that degree didn't exist.
No,
And when I was given the role, I was, prior to being at Baker Hughes, I was at Schlumberger for 19 and a half years. And I was director of ESG in 2017, before really the industry had really made valuable steps in ESG. And even myself, with that title, when I received that title, I thought, I need to learn.
Yeah.
Right now, fast forward a few years, so many people are in school with sustainability degrees, but they don't have any experience in terms of putting it in practice. And
there's many needs here, aren't there, that are important. So learning is important. Dana, can I bring you in though? In your region, what would you say is the biggest skill that you need as young people? Dana, yeah. Oh, sorry.
So I would say the main idea in Kazakhstan that will be useful is training the trainers. So I think among youth, you have to train trainers that will be then spreading around this type of expertise. So because each region has specific, and you have to know how to work with type of youth as well. So I think that it will be much more efficient if youth will be having a content from those that they really already know, not from a foreigner, not from a very adult man. So training the trainers is very good instrument, I think, in terms of this challenge.
I am being waved at. Can I just finish the last two, or do I have to cut it off here? I can just finish the last. Any thoughts from you, Paul, or any final thoughts as we close? Because then I'm going to draw this to a close.
I think the points that the other panelists made are excellent. The need for capacity in the countries, that this is indigenized in a way, that this is made sort of something that is not just sort of brought in by foreign projects, but really, coming through in that way. And the soft skills as well, I think that's really important. As you're saying, the landscape can change, but there are some things which are always needed. The ability to sort of navigate within these spaces, to advocate too. I think that sort of advocating effectively is really, really critical. And I think if I have one last word, I think we also do need to think about the international dimension. My migration background, but there are not enough people with skills for green jobs anywhere in the world. We need to think about building out those skill systems and also building opportunities for people to move, to share their skills, to learn new skills abroad, come back or work within a structure which enables them to engage in sort of virtual return as well. And we need to sort of focus on skill development also, if I may say, bringing in the UN jargon a little bit, but as a rights element. It's a right for someone to develop their skills.
Totally.
And that's really important. Thank you.
Totally. And Rob, closing words on Energy Day. What's your final word here on your aspiration for skills?
We need to build an energy system that's taken us 120 years to build in the next 20 years. So the risk of sounding like a red-blooded capitalist here, there is a need for incredible bankers, incredible lawyers, incredible planning people, incredible construction engineers. This is the opportunity for the next generation to be given almost the exchange for the loss which they've got, the environmental challenge which they're being given as an inheritance. The opportunity is build that transition. It should be a really exciting message, actually, that it's about a huge growth in the economy and there's huge jobs and opportunity coming.
Okay, on that positive note, can I say a huge thank you to my fantastic panel. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for questions, but I think the speakers can stand around for a while, so do continue to engage them. And you've heard an enormous amount of positivity about the opportunities for young people. So all of us in the audience, let's go and help make that happen. And good luck in the negotiations. Thank you very much.